those workers who were more exposed to the process of dying compared to death, after death, dead bodies. There became kind of a dichotomy between them where when it comes to having paranormal experience, want to take a guess which one has it more?
Hey everybody, do us a quick favor and hit follow and smash that like or subscribe button wherever you're listening right now. It'll help us keep getting great guests and make it so you don't miss the next episode. Now on with the show. Welcome to Splintered Spirits, the podcast hosted by me, Gary, and my nephew, John Santa from Santa Paranormal, where we ask the question, what are spirits? This week we're joined by someone who sits at the crossroads of psychology, mortality, and the paranormal. Kelly Curtis is an American parapsychologist and PhD candidate at Manchester Metropolitan University and a key member of Paranormal Rescue in the UK, a team dedicated to investigating and resolving hauntings with compassion and scientific care. Kelly's work zeroes in on one of life's greatest mysteries, how our experiences with death shape what we believe about the afterlife and the paranormal. She's been collecting data from people who live and work closely with death. Care workers, hospice staff, first responders, just to name a few, to understand how that exposure changes our sense of what's possible beyond this life. With more than 2 decades of paranormal investigation behind her, Kelly blends field experience with psychological insight, offering a grounded yet deeply human look at how death might not just end a story, but open the door to something more. It's Kelly's fearless curiosity and extensive research about mortality driving her to earn her PhD and the fitting nickname, Dr. Death. Let's jump into the conversation. Kelly, welcome. Thank you for being on Splintered Spirits.
My pleasure.
Kelly, where are you? Where does this podcast find you today?
I am living in Manchester, England. So that's where I'm calling from.
How long have you been there?
Over 4 years at this point.
Are you there? Do you live there, or are you there for just schooling or teaching?
Well, that's what brought me here, was to get my PhD, doing parapsychological research. But I've fallen in love with the area, so I don't plan on leaving. So I'm here now.
Got it. Where are you from in the States?
Originally in the middle of nowhere in Illinois.
Oh.
Middle of a cornfield in Illinois.
Okay. Now then, tell us the original journey here for you of getting involved in the paranormal that took you to Manchester. What was that thing? What was that one thing that you're like, I have to go?
Well, I'm sure as many of these stories it started in childhood, so it's hard to pinpoint the one thing. But I've been interested in the paranormal since I was a little girl. I was that creepy little girl going to her neighbors' houses, knocking on the door and asking, "Can I check out the ghosts in your house?" And I remember multiple times my neighbors just slowly closing the door on me, completely freaked out. So it started way back then. I was always interested in the paranormal, in the unexplained, finding those threads of truth even as a kid. So I would find dead relatives in the cemetery of these people, my neighbors, and then go into the library of the Days of Microfiche and searching for their obituaries, even as a little kid. So it's always been there.
Now, what did your parents do? Did your parents try to say, listen, let's get this kid to Disneyland quickly? There's something.
No. They were very encouraging, particularly my mother. Never shut it down, never discouraged it. My mother's also very into the paranormal, so it was something we bonded over, frankly. I even remember there was a time where my mother was telling one of her friends some of my ghost stories. And I remember seeing the look on my mother's friend's face. And that was the moment I realized, like, oh, this is not something people do. Like,
Right.
I
It's not
had
for
that like
everybody.
light bulb moment. Yeah, this is not just like, oh, people do this. So, but I mean, like, you grow up and life
But, it's like, I
happens,
mean,
and
did you go to like high school in Illinois? I'm always
yeah,
fascinated by this part
absolutely.
because there is a moment of choice where it's like, I am going from being interested and loving horror, Stephen King cemeteries and all that stuff to I am going to make a living and study this
Yeah,
as my choice. Was there any
yeah.
event that happened or something you saw or had seen and said, I need
Oh,
to know
I
answers
mean,
to these questions?
I saw many things as a kid, and I think this is what really tipped me over. And like a little bit of my backstory, I had a traumatic birth, so I almost died being
Okay.
born. So I think, in a way, it kind of left a window open for me. So I feel like I've been a little bit of a beacon for paranormal activity since I was a child.
Got it.
Um, so I've had so many experiences, and that's also with that light bulb moment, I realized, like, oh, people don't have these experiences either. Like, it's supposed to be scary, even though it was never scary for me. It was just normal to, like, oh yeah, there's a ghost over there. Like, cool. Um,
Now,
so it
did
was
you see it? Did you see it? Which Claire are you? Or do you
all
feel
the
you?
Claires, frankly. Pretty much all of them. I would see things, hear things. Like, even as a little toddler, I would tell my mother about the ghosts that would visit me at night, and things like that. So always there, seeing,
Got it.
hearing, feeling, sensing,
So
knowing.
Kelly, for you, it's beyond just being a scientist and an investigator. You are an intuitive. You believe right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Um, I I mean, and I've worked in that neck of the woods, previously professionally, reading cards, doing intuitive coaching with people, helping people bring out their intuition and things like that. But I did really want to go down more of a scientific road eventually. I did my undergrad in psychology. I was really interested in just the way people think, what makes people tick. And then I went on to do my master's in mental health, because there's also an overlap there. A lot of
Yeah.
people who have these experiences get labeled, oh, you're just mentally ill, you're hallucinating. And I think that was also a fuel for me to go down the mental health road as well. Like, I wanted to just understand where that line in the sand is. What is healthy versus like not healthy? What is like people's reality versus their non-reality?
And how
And
does
it
that
just
research?
always intrigued me.
What is that research? Um, how do I want to ask this? What is in that research? How did you go about doing this then, in terms of discovering, and
Yeah.
what has it led you to believe here when you start? Is it just I got to just meet and interview and interview and interview and interview and gather data? And what have you of people with experiences or people without experiences?
Yeah.
What's the line for you? How does that work?
Um, well, I think it started to kind of formally come into play. I lived in Austin, Texas for most of my adult life.
Yeah.
I was there for about 15 years, and I joined a professional paranormal investigation team there. So we did all sorts of investigations, like private homes, people with children who were seeing things, and I was really able to step in and like let those kids feel heard and believed, which was really a big deal. So it was just really getting into a team that started me really being able to identify, as far as like paranormal experiences go. I'm seeing where this line, and this was after I had my master's in mental health. So I was really able to just help distinguish, like, using that toolbox that I had from that part of my education to understand, like, this person is with it. They know what they're talking about. Like, they believe what they're saying, compared to the people who would report things. And sometimes it is just instinctual. You're like, no, sorry. Like, what you're experiencing is, I think you need to go talk to somebody about it. and get an evaluation, which is a hard conversation to have, but sometimes is necessary. So, that working on that team for a long time really helps me start to distinguish the difference.
Kelly, can
And
you point to
yeah.
a particular specific story where you heard them tell you what happened and you were sort of at first questioning it, but then it became maybe it's something more than in their mind?
Yeah, that actually has happened here. Also, while I've been in England, I've been part of a paranormal investigation team called Paranormal Rescue.
Right. We've
And
interviewed Brian. Yep.
Brian, yes. Brian's a very close friend and colleague of mine. And we got an inquiry on a case about a woman. She lives in one of the islands in very, very north Scotland, very isolated location, not easy for us to get to. And because of my background, I'm definitely a go-to on the team to talk to these people who are submitting requests for an investigation and just feel it out. I have actually developed what's been deemed the Curtis scale. So it's basically a checklist of, is this credible or not? Is this worth our resources as a team to go and investigate? And, the claims this woman was claiming, I don't know how explicit I can be here, but okay, great.
Feel free.
She was making incubus claims, being sexually violated in her sleep by a spirit. And she's an older woman, and I'm going into my knowledge, and I'm like, okay, is dementia getting in here? This is not completely unheard of, but I just from the submission email inquiry, I was like, I don't know about this. And my job's to give her a call. Let me call this woman up and talk with her. And at the end of that call, I was like, she's legit. Because not a lot of it has to do with corroboration. Can other people corroborate what you're saying? Have they had experiences? Have they seen things? Have people heard things? And she's like, yeah, my daughter has seen this happen, and her daughter was able to verify, yes, this is what happened. And once that line gets crossed where other people are sharing experiences, my trust in the story, my ability to really lean into okay, this is happening, goes up a whole lot. So that was one that really turned me on a dime. At first I was like, okay, yeah, old woman, sure. And,
right.
not to sound crass, but, sometimes people just want attention, and sometimes people are mistaken and have other mental health things going on that can explain what's happening, and it's not necessarily the paranormal. And in this case, we left that conversation we're going to get you some help, and we did. We got her some help, and apparently things are fine now. So
okay,
win-win all around. Yeah.
Now, how many cases do you turn down?
Frequently.
Okay.
Yeah. Honestly, we turn down more than we accept. And I don't know why. I couldn't tell you pinpoint why that is. I think a lot of the times it's falling into that. I just think you're maybe not so credible. And we're in England, we get a lot of requests globally, frankly, at this point. And so, packing up our bags and flying to a different country is not so easy.
Sure.
So it really has to be tipping the scales quite a bit for us to be able to do some of these cases.
Kelly, how do you separate, and do you separate your Claire abilities, the Claires, from the scientific aspect?
Yeah.
When evaluating, the cases, do you use your Claire abilities while evaluating these cases, or do you separate it and then use the abilities afterwards? What's the process like for that?
Yeah, it's hard to turn them off entirely, right? Like, even if I was to intentionally try to, like, during this conversation, I am just gonna tune out my intuition. It creeps through. It's nature. Um, but I really do try to take a more scientific approach. This is why we really have embraced this Curtis scale that I developed, because it's black and white. It's about the types of experiences people are experiencing, how often is it happening in different locations? Do you have other people who can verify these things are happening? Like, have you had a mental health check? Like, and then we even go into things like, where locationally is this happening? Are there ley lines? Is there electromagnetic fields around? Like, sometimes people will live next to an explainable, like, something giving off EMF. And you're like, okay, that can actually fuel paranormal activity. So maybe there's something going on here. So I like to try to leave my internal judgments out of the picture when talking to people about it, and really just try to hear them and break down what it is that they're telling me, ask them some clarifying questions, and kind of go from there. But I would be lying if I said sometimes you just don't have a gut feeling about whether
Of
someone
course.
is believable, or they, like, I am telling you, this is what happened to me.
Was there ever any contradiction or fight between the two, between
No,
the Curtis scale and the clear abilities?
no,
No.
no. And I wonder a little bit if at this point in my life, having done, like, all my PhD research, like, I can't argue with what's happening in black and white sometimes. Like, when it's there on paper, even if my gut's kind of like, but on paper, it's like clear, like, this is an experience we need to go investigate. So be it. And also, on the other way around, like, I guess sometimes my intuition might tip me a little into the, like, I believe this person, even though it's not necessarily, like, so high on the Curtis scale, perhaps. But in that case, it's also about resources. If somebody has a report of a single phenomenal experience, is a single phenomenal experience worth gathering up our team, our resources, our time, our energy to go investigate? Because if it's not happening all the time, I might still believe you and think you're very credible and, like, yes, this is, like, impactful. Is a one and done experience worth
Right.
our time? And
Yeah, that
you know,
makes
not
sense.
that our time is,
Of course.
That
yeah,
makes sense. What you're talking about, your research that you went through it. Now,
yeah,
you've done your doctoral research explores how exposure to death impacts belief in the afterlife. Do I have that correct? Right? What?
that's it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Okay, so can you walk us through that connection? How did you decide on this, and then what connection? What connections have you made, and
Yeah.
what are those
Yeah.
stories?
So, again, growing up, my mother was a flight medic. So she was a paramedic on the helicopter going to the worst of the worst accidents, medical scenes, all of that. And being a paranormal believer herself, she loved to tell me about things that she would experience or see, um, at the time of people dying. It was very interesting to her. And what made it even more interesting to me was that she would share that, like, the whole team would leave the same experience having very different interpretations of what they just experienced. Like, my mother would be like, oh, it was the soul leaving the body and we could smell it and see it. And then somebody else would say, oh, no, it's just slightly cold out and, it's just body heat. And like everybody on the team would walk away with a different interpretation of the same sort of phenomenal event surrounding death. And it always stuck with me. And so, you know, back in the pandemic days when we were all cooped up, questioning our life choices and what do we really want to do with ourselves, that was really a moment for me. I was like, I really want to explore this for real. I really want to put like my money where my mouth is, where my interests are. So that's when I entered this PhD program. And what I've really uncovered from this is, first off, not a lot of people research this, surprisingly. I thought I would be adding to kind of a library of research, but it's really under-researched, particularly when it has to do with professionals, people who work around death or dying, and they see it all day, every day, and it's like just kind of this revolving door of death. People aren't looking at their interpretations of what they experience.
Are you talking like, sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to make sure I understand what you're talking about. You're talking about you're interviewing people who like work in hospice care, emergency first responders, death doulas, people like this, like right? This is not necessarily the individual who had a near-death experience. Is that right? So you're talking about the people around death, not someone who's had a death experience. Is that the difference?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So, and even people post-death, so morticians, embalmers.
Right.
Right. They were sort of the bulk of my interest. Now, I had to also compare that with others. Like, to be fully research-minded, I can look at a group in isolation, but I can get more information if I compare them to other groups. So I compared people who have that type of on-the-job exposure to people who have had loved ones who have died, to people who have had those types of experiences themselves, near-death experiences, terminal illness diagnoses, things like that.
It takes a certain... correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure you're going to get there, but I just have to... It does take a certain mindset of an individual to be working in like a nurse who is in the child intensive care unit or
NICU. Yeah, definitely.
You know, like those gotta have to be. I don't know how you can have a career in that and see children pass away constantly, right? Like that's got to be. I get chills thinking about how, devastatingly depressed that would make an individual, right? And it's like what versus, and then you interview the nurse at the pediatric dental office. It's probably a very different sort of vibe.
Different,
right? Like, what is it?
Yeah.
What did you learn? What did you learn about the people who do that for a living? Like, in how do they?
Are there common threads with them? Or
exactly. What is it?
Absolutely. Most of them. Here's my good starting point. Most of them will claim, I don't believe in the paranormal. I don't know what you're talking about as far as like weird things happening around death. But there was this one time where I'm going to tell you the most like unbelievable story, but I don't believe in the paranormal. And this was like a really interesting...
Wow, that's funny. That is
like
funny.
Conundrum I couldn't quite figure out at
very
first.
Large thread, it's a very...
And what I have come to... what my interpretation has become of this, because this was a very common thing, was these individuals who work around death so often see all sorts of weird, anomalous, unexplainable things. They do. They'll tell me that they do. However, I think in their mind, in their interpretation, it's normal for these weird, unexplainable, anomalous things to happen around death.
They've normalized it maybe so that they can keep waking up in the morning and
doing the thing, right? Like how, because when you actually think about that, like if every day on the job, you could almost guarantee something spooky was going to happen, like you'd have to learn how to justify that in some way. And that's exactly what I think, is that they've normalized the paranormal, and so they don't claim they believe in the paranormal.
The brain does that in general. The brain,
Yeah.
from people that get kidnapped and get, in association with their kidnapper, what is that, Stockholm syndrome?
Yeah.
Like the brain does that in general.
It's a
So,
survival instinct. Yeah.
yeah,
To conform
Yeah.
and to adjust.
yeah.
What, Kelly, what is all right. So what was it? What was the first so that's a surface thread, right? They all sort of deny, but tell you they
That's
saw
a
something.
wild topic in itself. That's like a whole, we can do a whole podcast just on that topic,
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But I love this, that I'm getting all of my questions I have just went out the window because it's like, this is a whole different angle.
It's wild.
It's all right. So they give you this surface, here's who I am, right? But and then, okay, so then tell me what's the next layer? What was the next commonality thread, in that world for them?
So there became a clear differentiation between those workers who were more exposed to the process of dying compared to death, after death, dead bodies. There became kind of a dichotomy between them where when it comes to having paranormal experience, want to take a guess which one has it more?
I would say I would assume the people around the living have it more than the people around that are already dead.
That's what I thought, and it's the opposite.
Interesting.
Yeah. When of all the morticians specifically that I got data from, 100% of them were like, yes, I've seen a ghost in my workplace. Weird sounds, noises, like things moving on their own. At 100% across the board, hands down, morticians. More so. And I sat on this for a little bit, like, okay, because I would have expected people in the process of dying. You have like there's so many well-recorded things that people go through when they're dying that can be very anomalous, like terminal lucidity, like they've been in a comatose and all of a sudden they wake up and they're very aware, and like things that happen after comas and people knowing things they're not supposed to know and reaching out and talking about dead loved ones. I was like certain people around dying.
Exactly. This comes secondhand, so I can't confirm this for myself, but we interviewed somebody who had spoken to the LA coroner's office, which is one of the busiest coroner's offices in the country, and about paranormal activity. And they were like, no, we get none, because and their philosophy. Now, again, I don't know. I didn't interview everybody individually, right? This is hearsay, but
sure.
What the logic for them, or whoever he spoke to and what he was telling us, is because by the time that meat sack gets here, the energy in them is gone, and it's like gone. It's just there's nothing here, right? And it's a pass through, right? A coroner's office is a pass through to a mortician, to a thing, right? It starts there, the bodies come there first, right? And
right.
But I thought that was interesting, and that's why I answered what I answered. But it's like, yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah,
right?
And that's what in every pool of people you get info from is going to be unique, right? But I've wondered about this. Like, I'm wondering if it's about like thinking about when we do paranormal investigations, we usually do them at night, and not because it's like spooky and creepy at night. It's because the world gets quieter at night. And you're more able to notice the subtleties around you and hear things and stuff because you don't have traffic and noise and TV and like just the world going on around you. And I've wondered if I haven't like superimposed myself into like a mortician's workplace, but I imagine it's quieter than a hustling, bustling hospital or even like a hospice care facility. Like there's people, there's movement, there's stuff.
If you believe everything you see in the movies, right, the odds are that they've got like rock and roll playing and they're eating a sandwich over the dead body.
Yeah.
It's like it's the biggest. the biggest trope in movies is right, like the coroner, the
Right, right.
autopsy guy is eating lunch while
Yeah.
he's doing it. It's like, you know,
While
it's
he's
just,
like over this body. Yeah.
right. The body's open. They're like puts his sandwich down. It's like one of the biggest. You know what I mean? They do that all the time.
Yeah.
Where it's if that's to be believed. But I hear right. Of course, when you close your eyes, it's like
Yeah.
it's like trying to find a parking space and you turn the radio down for some reason, as if
Right,
that's going to help
exactly.
you. So it helps you focus in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
Well, that is a
Exactly.
different atmosphere between a coroner's office and a
Yeah.
mortician. It's a
Yeah.
completely different atmosphere.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
yeah.
All right. So the
True.
morticians tell you they experience something. And I love where your mind goes. It's like, why would they experience it more? Because they're working alone, most of the likely, and it's, quiet, all this stuff.
Yeah. Softer environment.
Now, what about the people though around the dying, not the dead? And what was was that second layer of commonality?
They, they were like a mixed bag. They weren't so universal on, yes, I've had these experiences. And I found it interesting because I did both like paper questionnaires and interviews, because I knew some people would feel more comfortable being anonymous on a piece of paper versus some people would feel more comfortable talking to me about this. And on paper, it was a very mixed bag. People saying, yeah, I've had experiences. No, I haven't. And I noticed there seems to be a cumulative effect. So people who work in that field, but have also had multiple deaths in their personal life, their ability to be open to these ideas go up. People who are just like, I only work around death and dying, but I don't report any personal life kind of exposure. Their like willingness to have these experiences is how I'm going to phrase it.
Is there
down.
Is there a religious thread between people with more experience versus less that are in this space?
I did, of course, ask about religion. No is my answer. There is not the religious, the non-religious, different denominations of religions. It didn't seem to have an impact on it. However,
how big was your pool, by the way? Sorry, this is fascinating to me. What did you do for this study?
On paper, it was close to 1,000.
Oh, wow.
And that was a mix, though, between people who did work and didn't work in professions, because I needed a comparison. I interviewed 15 people, and those people were strictly in the professions.
Around the dying or the dead. Right.
Yes, and I tried to interview a different profession.
Sure.
Each person was a different neck of the woods. But what I discovered was, like, no matter what people's beliefs were, their experiences strengthened it. So this opens up another whole thread about, like, this is something that's been pondered on in the psychological field for a long time. Does your experiences influence your beliefs, or do your beliefs influence your experiences? And it's both.
It's both. Same thing with nature and nurture in psychology. The biggest argument, is it nature or nurture? Well,
yeah,
it's both.
It's both. Yeah. It's both. And people's experiences reinforce their beliefs, and their beliefs reinforce how they interpret their experiences. That's kind of the bottom line of it all. No matter what they were, the staunch atheists were like, seeing people die made me more atheist. The people who were religious were like, seeing the dead made me more believe in this religion. And it's interesting because all their reasoning was very similar, but they came to these different threads just based on the beliefs that they went into these jobs with. Because I was expecting, frankly, like, I can only imagine, like, if I could imagine being changed if I chose to work with the dying. Like you said, the NICU, like how could that not change you?
Right. So what
But
did you find? What did you find in that sense, though, Kelly, with like their personality? And what I mean by that is, when I look at certain professions, I don't think it's a job. I think it's a vocation, right? Like to be
Yes.
to be a kindergarten teacher to me requires a mindset that to deal with 5-year-olds 8 hours, like that
And
requires a certain,
teaching 5-year-olds, that's
exactly. But to be around it, yeah, everyone here is smarter than a kindergartner, but I could never in my life do that. That requires a mindset. Same with, in my belief, same in my belief, what a police officer should be, right? There's a certain mindset that you need to have to be patient and empathetic and strong and brave. Like it requires something. Did you find something like that in these people that was also common? I'm curious about that before we get into like paranormal side of it, but like just that sociological side of it.
Social, it certainly made them all more open-minded. So even though it strengthened their own beliefs and persona, that was very apparent. Who they were before, just like the volume got turned up on it. However, they became much more open to other people's ideas, more empathetic. And a lot of that happens, how it was described to me is like seeing loved ones was more influential than the dying person. So seeing the people grieving around the loved ones, seeing the varied like rituals surrounding death and what it means to different types of people. And like, I might think that's completely abnormal or strange. And I've never seen people do that with somebody who's dying, but seeing the impact it has on family and loved ones, and like, it opened them all up to see other people more clearly is the best way I can describe it. So it like not only made them see themselves more clearly, it didn't change them as far as their like makeup goes and their personality and their beliefs, and like they're still holding the same religious tunes that they were before. But I'm so much more open now to the variety of the world around me.
Last thing too about the study itself. This is mostly all UK, equal men, women, races.
UK, US, Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. So Western. That's where most of my contacts are. So that was path of least resistance, and ethical approval is a whole thing when doing research in this area. So I had to keep my scope a little small, but I would love to compare it with a variety of countries, backgrounds. It was still pretty white and Western in my research, unfortunately.
So what then, based on this research, does death and the paranormal, how is that, what is that connection? Is it a apparition, or, like, what is the thing? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what is that thing that they are calling paranormal as it relates to being around death? Or is it just, or it's a heightened, more noises, more things flying across the room, more like, what is the thing we're talking about?
I mean, that's just it. That brings me back to my first point. They're not. They're telling me these really strange stories. One story that was given to me, I think this is a really interesting example. I could tell you so many stories now that I'm pausing on this. One example was a woman who worked in a ER. She's a nurse. And once they had this young boy come in who had a terrible accident, was dying in front of them. And thankfully, they were able to save this little kid. He was maybe like 6, 8 years old, little kid. And great. And, the nature of the ER, as I've learned through these stories, is it's like it's a rotating door. You don't, like, these people don't stick around. They're on to the next, right? And like a month later, this little boy and his mom walk back into the emergency room. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, like, it's good to see. Like, they're kind of fawning over this little kid to give him a lot of attention and encouragement. Like, it's so good to see you. And the mom was like, he needs to talk to you all. And they were like, oh, okay, go for it. And this kid points to the doctor, like the main doctor that was of the crew who saved him, and said, you lost your little tool. And the doctor's like, what? And the kid goes on to describe this tool. And what's interesting is this particular doctor would modify his equipment to do things he wanted it to do. And this kid describes this tool, and he goes, you lost it in that room, and it's underneath this like cabinet. And they were like, what? And the kid takes them to the room, and it's underneath this cabinet. And this kid said, like, when I was like floating over my body, I saw you drop it and it fell under there. And I mean, like, this is one of those moments where you're like, you can't argue with a 7-year-old. Like, he's proving to you he knows exactly what he's talking about, and why. Like, there's no way. He was practically dead in the moment. How would he know this? Right. And the nurse is like, that type of stuff happens all the time.
and then they say that's not paranormal, right? They're like, that.
She absolutely was adamant. That is just how the body is when you die. Like, she normalized it. And I was like, of course, it's not my job to like interject in these interviews. It's just to gather information. And I'm over here thinking, like, you just told me one of these most amazing stories. I'm going to tell other people about this.
Right.
You can't make this up. This is like primo paranormal type moment.
So Kelly, what is your conclusion with this, right? Like, what did you gather from this that does it? Is that does being around death heighten paranormal? Is there a connection between paranormal activity and the moment of death?
I 100% would say yes.
Wow.
But of course,
that's a big
statement. I'm a little biased. I come as a skeptical believer, a conscientious believer.
Sure.
But hearing story after story, and it's interesting because regardless of how these people are interpreting it that are telling me these stories, I don't know how else to explain it other than spooky things, unexplainable, anomalous things happen around death. It's been well documented. I mean, like those examples I shared earlier, like terminal lucidity and people seeing their dead loved one. Like, people in history have been talking about these things. So it's no surprise to me that those who work in these fields are absolutely seeing and hearing and experiencing the paranormal. Absolutely.
And normalizing it, which is
and absolutely normalizing it.
I'm now worried about airing that when we air this episode that a bunch of ghost hunters are going to start hanging out, like, elderly homes and hospices and stuff, like
waiting with their REM pods, and
their REM pods are out. Like, we're going to get them. We're going to catch them. Kelly, what do you think spirits are?
I mean,
what are we dealing with?
I go all over the place with this. I mean, I think there's different things happening. I don't think there's one explanation. In some cases, yeah, I do think that the soul, if you want to call it that, has exited our little meat bag here and is moving around, particularly around the time of death. Something happens, right, when we die. Yeah. I think that might be some of it. I don't think that explains everything that people experience. I do think some of it might be, interdimensional. I think sometimes worlds collide and things pop in and out of our existence here. That's not a soul from a body, like going, woo, it's dimensions colliding.
But when you say soul, do you say soul from a religious sense? Like it's this otherworldly heaven and hell, God created, where there's a thing? Or what do you think? Is there a... It's okay if you do. It's just,
no,
I'm trying to get my head around.
I'm not religious. I'm a recovering Catholic. So no,
so
not
are we.
religious.
We both are. You're dealing with that.
Yeah. I do it for more of like a spiritual.
I know, that is funny.
Recovering Catholic.
I think we're going to have to steal that one, John.
Please.
For sure.
Recovering Catholic.
Recovering Catholic.
Get me up here.
That's really a great way to say it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That in a nutshell. But from a spiritual point of view, like I'm like, well, more likely to say the universe than heaven, hell. Like I don't have that type of thing. I think there is a ghost in the machine happening here. And even from a psychological point of view, like there's something happening inside of us that our cells don't explain alone. Like it just is. And it goes even past the whole nature versus nurture question. There's something else happening here. And the question of like the moment of death, like someone is living and then they're just a body. Like something was in there. Something was occupying that space that is no longer occupying that space. And even from like a quantum physics point of view, like that energy, that something has to go somewhere. Something has to happen to it. It doesn't just disappear. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I encompass the soul, this sort of makeup of our spiritual essence, our clairs, our intuition, the things that are happening between ourselves more than the cells themselves.
Kelly,
and something has to happen.
Did you sit by any bedsides during this research yourself during people's passing?
No, but that would definitely be the next chapter.
That's your next phase
of my research. Yeah, I want to see this in action a little bit more.
Wait a minute, and it's just got real. It's like all of a sudden, it's like Kelly's like, I want to see people die.
I want to see it.
I want to see it happen. It's like the first, and it's like they're not dying fast enough, and she has to make it happen for herself. And it's like all of a sudden we just uncovered a serial killer plot.
Yeah,
but it's for science. It's for science. Yeah. So you've been on ghost hunts, Kelly, and and for this, so many ghost hunters, right? They prioritize tech with their data, and you seem to emphasize more observation and reflection in your data. How do those methods change, what you find? Have you added any sort of tech to your findings, or when you're out there in these things, what is that?
I mean,
how do you combine those two?
Our team definitely has tech, but it's about the corroboration. If I don't claim to be the intuitive person on the team. I'm more of the psychological aspect of the team. That's really my wheelhouse. Yes, I am intuitive. However, that is not the hat I'm wearing at our investigations. Our intuitive medium person, if she is experiencing something and the equipment experiences something and I see people react to something in a particular way, it's the combined corroboration. I am not one to just lean on tech. Oh, there's an anomaly on this thermal camera. Okay, cool. What else was going on in this environment? Did people see it? Did people have an experience at the same time? Did someone who's a psychic sense something at the same time? Then now we're cooking with gas. That's when I'm really getting my juices flowing about something. So it's like teamwork on that level for me, for sure. Not just tech, not just intuition. It's a team coming together for sure.
Are you even remotely afraid of death based on all of this stuff?
No, never have been.
Okay.
No, I mean, I was born dead is like how I like to claim it. So I've been there, done that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Kelly, this was really interesting. I really love it. I don't. The only other last question I have is that a tattoo right here on your
Yeah.
neck? That is a badass
Yeah.
tattoo. What is going
Thank
on?
you.
Is that a moth?
It's a moth. Yeah. And foxes and things.
So you have a whole chest piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
hardcore.
nice. Cool.
That is
Yeah.
hardcore. And the moth. What is that? The moth isn't that a symbol for death? Isn't that the
Yeah, it
sort of
is.
thing?
Absolutely. Yep.
Amazing. So yeah, this is you really have. You've committed. You made it your life's work about it. I love it. I love hearing from
Yeah.
look, for us, our whole podcast is what our spirit, like we love hearing the different perspectives of what are spirits. And I love the fact that you've done this research, and it's great to get to talk to a researcher and a parapsychologist, a true one who's out there asking these questions and gathering data, in this space.
Yeah.
And I find it funny how people really, despite having seen it, deny it in a weird way. But I shouldn't say
Yeah.
deny it because they tell you about it. They just
No,
don't.
they're perfectly accepting. They just interpreted it in
Yeah.
an unexpected way.
Sure.
Yeah.
This was truly great. What's next where would you like people to go for, you want to plug anything or drop any links or books or what's next?
Books will be in my future. Right now, I'm just finishing up my PhD. I have to actually defend it in a few weeks. So then I'll officially be Dr. Death over here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that true? Could you do that? Was that the name?
I could, yeah. I'm already plotting my social media handles, of course.
Okay. Sure.
But yeah, Paranormal Rescue is a really great
Yep.
home base for my stuff. If you're on the academic side of the world, you can look up some of my papers. Just search my name.
Amazing.
In academic libraries. Yeah.
Well, Kelly, listen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. This was great.
It was really interesting. We don't really talk about the moment of death that often. We've had somebody talk about their near-death experience on here. We haven't, which was fascinating, and I'd like to hear more of those stories. But yeah, you're literally covering the quote unquote bridge, right? From one side to the other, which is whatever that other side is, or whatever's happening. But yeah, it's really fascinating, those studies that you're doing, and we look forward to reading and hearing more about them as you progress.
Lovely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. It's great.
My pleasure.
Well, that's it for another episode of Splintered Spirits. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, stay curious.